We are back with Mr. Ron Bobb Semple. Ron, Garvey died at 53 in the UK.
Yes.
And
June 10th, June 10th, 1940.
And without ever setting foot in Africa, yet he's so revered, his works is so revered by Africans.
Yes.
Who really was Marcus Garvey, if you had to sum it up?
Hey, boy.
I know.
Here it is an individual who was somewhat self-taught. He read profusely. His father had an incredible library. And when Garvey realized that wherever blacks and whites were in close proximity, blacks were always at the bottom. And he felt that something had to be done about that. And he traveled and he left Jamaica and traveled, to Costa Rica, even went to Guyana. I think it was back in 36, I think it was. And having come to the United States and realizing, the plight of African people here, and to be able to amass an organization or members of an organization throughout the world, millions of people to join the UNIA, and almost single-handedly, Marcus Garvey published a newspaper in 3 languages, English, French, and Spanish. And to be able to amass these organizations throughout the world without the advent of television, radio, internet, Instagram, Wi-Fi, to know that an individual back in the 19 and teens could come to the United States and establish himself and realize that the powers that be were not happy with him organizing his people. Because, he was railroaded. His own people just did him in, just as with the Malcolm X, And when the powers that be realized that there's this individual who is organizing his people, no, we can't allow that. Garvey even met with the KKK, and Americans and Africans, people felt that he was selling out. No, Garvey went and met with the KKK because he wanted to find out how they are organizing themselves. And when he came back and had his big rally there, the convention there in Madison Square Garden, over 20,000 people, that convention lasted 1 month. He talked about the fact that, hey, listen, you form an organization like the Ku Klux Klan so that you'll be able to look out for your own interest and not have to be begging white people to do for you what you want to be doing for yourselves. He was not a racist. He had the pride in his own people. Mm-hmm. He was appreciative of what he was able to do and the whole system of organization. And when you look at a man with that kind of stature, because, J. Edgar Hoover, you referred to him as this short, pudgy, ugly black man. Here he was on Fifth Avenue. Mm-hmm. Everybody dressed to the nine. Thousands of people down Fifth Avenue in his parade. But as you mentioned, that he never set foot on the continent, but his impact there was tremendous. And what I was about to mention before you took the break, Sarwin, when I did my presentation there in Senegal and got done, I went in the room and sat and cried like a baby. I'd never before cried and felt so good because I realized that what just happened, that Garvey never physically made it to the continent. Yeah. And here I am with his image, his words, his ideologies, and his philosophies.
His spirit certainly did.
And they just swept me away. Mm-hmm. That was in 1999. And in 2000, I went back to Ghana at the Elmina Castle.
What did you think, what is it in Garvey's background, his educational background, mm-hmm. that made him such a...
You're just breaking up at the end.
Hold on.
Let me repeat the question, please.
Okay. What do you think it was in Garvey's background?
Yes.
That made him such an intellectual force to reckon with?
His humble upbringings. and the fact that he read profusely. I'd like to inject something right here now, Selwyn. You're talking about his background. I went to Jamaica for the first time in 1987, which was the 100th celebration of the birth of Marcus Garvey. And you could have read a number of books, or anybody can read a number of books and find out about Garvey that somebody has written. When I went to Jamaica in 1987 with the UNIA chapter out of New York, we went to celebrate Garvey's 100th birthday. I got the opportunity to sit and chat with Ruth Prescott, who is a cousin of Marcus Garvey, actually lived in the house with Marcus Garvey. His aunt, I'm sorry, Ruth Prescott. And I sat and I chatted with her for about a half an hour before I did my presentation. So the stuff that she told me and what I have, my presentation is about, that just, put some more juice in me. Because I wanted to know what he was like at home. Did he walk around the house barefoot? Or did he smoke a pipe? Because, he did suffer from asthma. These little things I wanted to know about him, what really molded this man. So the stuff that she was sharing with me, he just buried himself in his father's library. He was a printer. So when he came to the United States, he could have, he published, the Negro World. And as I mentioned, in free languages. We go right back to the foundation and the roots. His foundation that he was afforded by his parents. And his mother, she was somewhat reserved, but I know that she had an extremely huge impact on his life. So he was molded by those two people. So when he was set free, in that he left the home and traveled, he was well prepared. He was not just allowed to set foot on the continent. Marcus Garvey was not allowed to set foot on the island of Bermuda.
Wow.
I went to Bermuda and did my presentation on a couple of occasions. So I'm saying all that to say the opportunities that Garvey did not get.
You have traveled the world portraying Marcus Garvey, in the spirit of Marcus Garvey. What was it like? Well, let me switch it this way. Describe for us the first time you performed this role in front of an audience.
Hey, the first time, as I mentioned earlier in our conversation, my presentation was about 7 minutes long.
7 minutes.
Yes, and it was done at the Carlos Cooks Hall on 125th Street in Harlem. I do not remember what the impact then was, but as it grew, and I grew into Garvey, and I continued to do my research and broaden the whole horizon. One presentation that really sticks out in my mind, two, I've got to say. One of them was in Jamaica, down in Halfway Tree, for those of you who know Jamaica. And it was in a little hall. It might have held about no more than 20 people. And I got on that stage, Selwyn, and I just looked at those brothers and sisters sitting there in awe to know that Garvey come back. And the whole connection that they made to me took me out. Because again, I realized that, that Garvey had been, and still is, deliberately kept out of any curriculum in Jamaica. And a lot of Jamaicans don't know about Garvey. The Rastafarians, they're there, they're up on Garvey, and a lot of other Jamaicans. The second presentation that I did that really sticks out in my mind is a presentation I did here in Florida, in St. Petersburg.
Mm-hmm.
And in the audience was the father of a friend of mine. I don't think she told him where she was taking him, but he came to see my presentation. And at the end, I do a Q&A. And this brother actually stood and listened to Garvey on 138th Street in Manhattan. And to come here, he was almost 90 then.
Mm-hmm.
And he said to come here and to see you bring this man alive brought me to tears. These are the things that encourage me. And I can easily forget those who've been putting obstacles, attempting to put obstacles in my way because they don't appreciate what I'm doing.
What are you doing? Yes.
So individuals in that, that's what fuels my fire. And then being in Jamaica since last Wednesday, Selwyn, I'm still trying to come down because of that energy that I got. I'm telling you, man, it was almost a scary moment, with this, excuse me, everybody and his grandmother's got a cell phone. And as soon as I stepped on that stage and folks realized that they're not looking at Garvey, but they're looking at Garvey,
yes,
there was this barrage of cell phones. And everybody came up and they had them cell phones recording to capture this moment. And this was an unbelievable experience. And I'm standing there and just watching these brothers and sisters just being, I saw one sister standing there with her tears just running down her face. And these are the words of Garvey. They're just through me. I use my talent, my creativity, to impart these words. And this is the advantage that I have because, Garvey was such an orator. And I said, well, Ron, well, you look like him, you sound like him, But I never sat down and studied his pattern. I've listened. There are just 2 speeches that are available. I listened to him, and with the words, I just developed this rhythm, and found myself just, sounding like him. I don't make a concerted effort to copy. So this has been such an experience for me over these years. It's unfortunate, but then again, we're living in a real world.
Yes.
How my work is being exploited, but most of which I have absolutely no control over. Because everybody and his grandma's got a cell phone. You go on the internet and YouTube, and you see all this old Marcus Garvey, but it's the voice of Ron Bobb Semple. But as far as folks say that is Garvey. No, it's not. No, it's not.
It is so humbling actually to listen to you, and to know that you have other great works under your belt, stage
Yes.
and film, and
Yes.
You've thrown yourself into this role of Marcus Garvey because it is so important for our people to know who Marcus Garvey was and what he
Yes.
represented. I came across something. You were in Bingo, a musical directed by the legendary Ossie Davis.
Oh, goodness,
Right?
Selwyn, you're taking me back, my brother. Bingo Long and the Traveling All-Star.
What was it like working with Ossie Davis?
Boy, I auditioned for that musical.
Uh-huh.
It was done at the Amas Repertory Theater in Harlem. I auditioned for that musical. Well, if you're going to be a part of the cast, it's a musical. You got to sing,
Yes.
you got to dance, and you have to hack. I auditioned for Brother Ossie Davis. And the song I sang was from a musical that I did. The first show that I did, I came to the United States in 1972, called Ballad for Bimshire by Irvin Burgee. Ossie Davis did that play on Broadway, but the name was Ballad Carib. So when he heard me sing that song from that show, I just noticed his face light up. I didn't know that before I sang the song. And I got a call back and, excuse me, went through the dance routines and whatnot. And then my agent told me that I was cast. We had a successful run, and the play should have gone to France, I think, but it didn't happen. Marcus Garvey. Ossie Davis wrote me a letter. He said, Ron, you are the only actor in this cast who, when you hit the boards, you are Sally Boggs and not Ron Bobb Semple. He said, you are one of the most gifted performers that I've worked with. Ossie Davis told me that.
Wow. Ron,
so, you know, when you get comments like that from somebody like Ossie Davis,
yes,
and then our birth dates are a day apart, and he took this liking to me, and he really appreciated what I was doing, and so when I started writing the film version of Garvey, Black Moses, I shared with him my first draft. Because I told him, man, I said, Mr. Davis, I would love for you to even direct my one-man presentation, because getting that third eye, and getting a different opinion. But he was busy. He was doing a 2-character play on Broadway then, and he said, Ron, I may not be able to get involved, but he really appreciated what I was doing, and to give me that kind of encouragement. I've never forgotten him, nor his wife, Ruby Dee.
In 2005, Ron, you won the Adelco's Lead Actors Award.
Yes.
What did that mean to you then?
I was giddy. Selwyn, I was giddy. I don't know, you probably can't see it, I have my award on the wall behind me. I was giddy in that I'd moved to Florida, and I went back for the Adelco Awards. And I'm sitting there in the audience, my friends are there and whatnot. My buddy Adam Wade, the recording artist, he said, hey, Ron, glad you made it, whatnot. But I didn't, he wasn't giving away the fact because, he's part of the committee. And I'm sitting there, and Joyce Sylvester, who wrote the play that was at the Billie Holiday Theater. And when they announced that I was the winner, I was so giddy.
Congratulations, man! I know
because that was the that was the first quote unquote big theatrical award that I won, and I just jumped up and I got backstage there. It was at the college up there in Harlem. I'm trying to remember the exact name, but I was absolutely giddy, and really, I really appreciate when my work is appreciated. I'm not one looking for accolades and plaques and all of that, but when it happens, it does something, and it gives you that impetus to really to keep going and do good work. One of my mottos is that it takes a long time to be an overnight success. And it's nothing like success through perseverance.
What have you discovered about yourself while playing the role of Marcus Garvey?
It ties into a comment that I made earlier. This endurance that I've had.
The endurance.
I mentioned to Imhotep Gary Word that I still cannot believe after all of these years that I can still do this presentation with the intensity that I do it. Oh, I'm drained when I'm done. Absolutement. Absolutely. And then in that heat in Jamaica, oh boy, Yes, it's right because it's a whole. Um, as I mentioned, it's a transformation.
Yes.
And once you get into Garvey, and those words start keep pumping, and it just goes because it has to come from within.
How do you prepare for this?
Pardon me?
How do you prepare for this if there is a preparation?
Well, I've been doing it so long,
Yeah.
Selwyn, that I just need 15 minutes.
50 minutes.
Yes, to get in there. Before it was, I had to, but one brother came to me after the presentation and said, Ron, I don't know if you know what just happened up there. He said, you couldn't be acting.
Mm.
He said, one comment he made, oh gosh, it can't come to me right now, but he took the time out. And those brothers just, they just put their hand on me. One young lady had a little baby with her, and she said, afterwards I had changed and I was walking around. She said, oh, you got it, Marcus. I said, I just want to shake your hand. And she brought her little baby. She said, this is Mr. Garvey. And that connect makes what I do real. And I've said many a times, I'm a professional actor, but what I do with Garvey is not an act.
If you could see Marcus Garvey today, what 3 questions will you ask him?
I don't think I'll be able to say anything.
Wow.
That's all I can say, Selwyn.
Mm.
I don't think I'll be able to say anything. Because of the power of this man and what he was able to accomplish.
Yes.
As I said earlier, almost single-handedly. That he laid the carpet down for us folk.
Ron, I'm going to ask you a sociological question.
Please.
You mentioned earlier there was no Wi-Fi, no internet, most of the modern forms of means of communication.
Mm-hmm.
Yet Marcus Garvey was able to make such an impact on thousands of lives.
Yes.
Around the world.
Yes.
What was the ethos of the Black community then, or I should say the Black nation, global Black nation, that made this possible for Marcus Garvey?
They needed somebody to lift them up.
Oh man, you couldn't get simpler as that, and simpler and so profound. They needed somebody to lift them up.
Up you mighty race, you can accomplish what you will.
Ron, I've always admired you for your intellect and your insight into Black consciousness and so on. So I'm going to risk this question. If Marcus Garvey were alive today,
mm-hmm.
Marcus Garvey, Malcolm X, and Dr. King on a panel, what type of reaction do you think they would get from the Black community today?
Well,
yes.
First of all, Malcolm X's father was a Garveyite.
Didn't know that.
Dr. King, his ideologies and philosophies emanate from Garveyism. And I'm going to just add another one. Louis Farrakhan, his parents were Garveyites.
What?
So Selwyn, that's where the importance of Garvey comes from.
Amen, brother. I'm glad I asked that question.
So for the 3 of them that you mentioned, to sit on the panel, Garvey's the teacher right there.
When are you most happy, Ron?
When I can reflect on my life and realize what I have accomplished. A lot of it I didn't just set out to accomplish. And this has nothing to do with material things or money. It has to do with um, the moments that I can dig deep into my gut, into
Wow.
myself,
Mm.
and smile at me.
What are you most proud of?
My two children,
And what are you most thankful for?
my parents.
If you could go back in time, what would you tell that 16-year-old boy?
You can accomplish anything. I've had the opportunity, Selwyn, for the last few years, to be a mentor in the Big Brothers Big Sisters program out here in Florida.
Yes.
And it started from my Rites of Passage program in New York. And to know that I've afforded myself or given the opportunity to mentor a young man. He's now 13. He's at a point whereby, you know, I mean, he's toying with a whole lot of stuff. A lot of stuff is going through him. So it has been a challenge for me because I know the society in which we all live, and he, as a young black man in this society, those are two strikes against you right there.
Yes.
Young black, you know. So, you know, I mean, if I can just keep on working with Jeremiah and make sure that he comes out ahead of the game, that's another smile for me.
Yes. What makes you laugh out loud, Ron?
Hey, boy. You know, listen, man, I love laughter. You realize that. Listen, man, it is such a good feeling. And boy, you're bringing up some questions that are just taking me way back. Speaking about laughter, I don't know how much more time we have. So.
We're out of time, but you can take a few more minutes.
Okay, yeah, please allow me. Talking about laughter, when I lived in New York, my agent told me that I've got an audition for a skin product.
Yes.
And I auditioned. And at the end of the audition, as part of the script, I let out this laugh, this gut-wrenching laughter. And when they sent the tape to Sydney, Australia, immediately they said, that's him. It was for a UV commercial. I don't know if you've seen it on the internet. It's got something like about 3 million likes.
What?
It's a UV commercial that I shot in Sydney, Australia. When I got there, the first thing they asked me, said, Ron, could you just give us that laughter? I'm not upset yet. So going back to your question, Selwyn, I like a good laugh, man. A good laugh that makes me feel good.
Yes.
But on another note, and this is something very personal, an aunt of mine who passed away, she always wondered why I enjoyed a laugh so much. And she said, Ron, you sure you're not covering up something?
Mm.
And I sat back and I thought about it. And on occasions, I have. But to get in a good laugh, man, and folks have told me, said, man, Ron, why you still with that laughter all these years? Yes, because why should I change? Well, you're always there, they're making all that kind of joke and whatnot. Yes, no, but I'm a serious man. Always making a joke. Yes, because that's me. That's part of me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So to have a good laugh, you know, I don't just laugh to just cover up, but she noticed that. You know, and then I reflected and said, wait a minute. On occasions, I'm sure I have.
Mm.
You know what I mean? To just mask something.
Yes.
But to get a good laugh in, man, oh, I love it. especially when it hurts.
When it Ron,
Yes.
um, if I ask you to indulge us for a moment. 1 minute, if possible.
Okay.
A piece of Garvey.
Selwyn,
Yeah, I'm gonna laugh now.
no. I must say this in all seriousness, and
Yes.
this happened in an interview that I did in Portland, in Jamaica, last Saturday, I think it was. It is very difficult for me to just do a piece of my Garvey.
Understand.
Very serious about this.
Understand.
Unless I done that regalia, it doesn't make sense to me.
Got you.
And I don't want to just do it, you mean, for the interview's sake. So please understand and forgive me for not, because I'll just be spitting out. You're chatting with Ron Bobb Semple.
I totally
not,
get it.
not the spirit of Marcus Garvey.
I totally get it, brother. I totally
Okay,
get it.
I appreciate that, my brother.
And,
You're
and thanks for your grace in explaining it to us, your reason
Yeah.
for it. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. Ron, thank you for spending this time with us. I have learned a lot more from you during this interview, even though I've known you for so many years. And
Yes.
thanks for being so candid. Keep up the good works. And again, congratulations.
Thank you, Selwyn, and thank you for your stick-to-itiveness. I know when you embarked on this project, it was touch and go with all the glitches and whatnot.
Yes.
And over the years, you've ironed things out, and you continue to grow. And certainly hope that your audience grows along with you. And all the best to you, my friend.
Thank you, brother.
Okay, no, thank you.
Good night.
Good night.